On a Monday morning in May 1992, a 20-year-old woman is murdered in her home. Her husband of just 9 days comes home from work and finds his high school sweetheart stabbed to death. Her name is Jennifer Jud. Who killed Jennifer Jud? In this new series, we'll attempt to solve a 32-year-old cold case. Listen to Who Killed Jennifer Jud on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Deviant is a show about true crime, so this is a true story, and it may contain material that's not suitable for all audiences.
What pissed you off? What did these people do to you to make you angry? Because you know what? We're all human beings. We all know that anger, that feeling. What did these people do to just piss Tony Sowell off?
My head.
You know what, Tony? Let's talk about the first time your anger got a hold of you.
I don't know if it's anger like that.
Rage?
No, I can't explain.
When did you first lose control of this anger?
After me and my girlfriend broke up, I guess.
But at that point, you feel weren't able to control your behavior, your anger, or whatever?
I mean, it was just, I just like had a breakdown or something.
So, Tony, what was it about the folks we found in your house that pissed you off? They're different than the folks you normally help, right?
I help anybody.
But I mean, this isn't the neighbor that you're helping with the sink. Maybe you help these people because they wanted to get a buzz. You got to tell us, Tony, what happened in that house.
I don't remember like that. I just can't explain it like that.
On October 31st, 2009, Cleveland police officers Charles Locke and Iris Jones turn into the 4th District Police Station at Kinsman Road in East Cleveland when a car pulls up in front of them. The driver, a local resident, tells Officer Locke and Officer Jones that the man the Cleveland Police Department is looking for is just around the corner and he's wearing a backpack. Officers Locke and Jones get back in their police car and follow the local resident for just over half a mile before they arrive at the corner of East 97th and Mount Auburn Avenue.
They draw their weapons and order a man wearing a backpack to stop, show his hands, get on the ground. The man, who insists he was already stopped the night before, identifies himself as Anthony Williams.
It turns out he wasn't stopped the night before. And turns out he isn't Anthony Williams. He is Anthony Edward Sowell.
And he lives in a 3-story white house next to a sausage factory on Imperial Avenue.
We're all wired differently.
Some of us are wired for good.
Some of us are wired for bad.
But a select few step outside of all society's boundaries. From cold open media, this is Deviant. Anthony Sowell, Part 2.
Welcome back to Deviant, where we chase the truth into the dark corners of what humans are capable of. I'm Andrew Iden.
And I'm Dan Semitovich. Thanks so much for being with us again. If you haven't done the following, you have some following to do. Follow us on whichever podcast platform you're listening to this show. Also, follow us on social. We're on TikTok and Instagram at deviant.podcast. We'll be posting all sorts of stuff that you're going to want to see there. And if you want to go even deeper into the stories we're talking about and chat with me and Andrew on Discord, check out our Patreon. Go to deviantpodcast.com to see the different tiers and benefits available for you. There's a lot to check out, so check it out. But for now, let's get back to the story of Anthony Sowell.
On October 29th, 2009, police arrive at the home of Anthony Sowell in Cleveland's Mount Pleasant neighborhood, investigating a sexual assault. Sowell has already served 15 years in prison on a rape charge, and after his release is a registered sex offender. But when they enter the home, what they find isn't Anthony or his family.
The first 2 bodies are discovered on the 3rd floor, face down, in the same room, with a shovel between them.
The police report says decomposition makes gender difficult to determine.
A 3rd body is discovered in the same room, tucked into a corner in a black plastic trash bag. 3 more are in the house's basement in crawl space. One of them is only a skull. 5 more victims are buried in the backyard.
11 women, 11 victims.
So I went directly to the street.
Zach Reed, once a candidate for mayor in Cleveland, is the city councilman for the Mount Pleasant neighborhood at the time.
Matter of fact, I sat on the porch of that lady who had said many times that it's a foul smell in the neighborhood and it smells like a dead body. I literally sat on her porch and talked to a number of the constituents that were there, because you could imagine that night how many people were coming to that particular street.
The homeowner was on the loose somewhere, and it was Halloween night in Cleveland, and the police were telling people to stay indoors and to be safe. And it became a national story that just captivated everyone. And it just didn't seem real that this could be happening a few miles from where I lived at the time.
The voice is Chris Schroeder, and you heard him in our first episode. At this time, he's at the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office.
There was so much apprehension and fear in the air. Nobody had their mind around this at that point. Nobody knows how many bodies there are. Are they just in this one house? Are they in other places as well? None of the victims had been identified, so there are a lot of families out there with missing loved ones who aren't sure if their loved ones may be in that house. Nobody knew where Anthony Sowell was, or was he even the only person involved in this? There was so much tension in the air. You could feel that people didn't want to be outside, didn't want to be out talking to other people.
I was out there in the community with families, with the rest of community members and leaders, just at a visual, standing outside of the house, figuring out how we could start supporting these families.
That's Teresa Stafford. At the time, she's director of the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center. Teresa is now the CEO of the Hope and Healing Survivor Resource Center in Cleveland.
Maybe about a week later is when I learned that one of the survivors that I was already working with was actually identified as the survivor connected to the case before that night. The community was upset. They were upset that something like this could happen right underneath their nose, right next door. They were angry. They were hurt. They were grieving. They wanted accountability. They were scared because it was the unknown. We didn't have identifying information about who was found in that house at that point in time. The community was hurting.
Like I said, I've been a councilman at that particular time for over a decade, so I was pretty recognizable. People knew who I was. I was trying to be visible as a councilman overall before this happened. So people knew me, I knew them, and we had a conversation. And like I said, it was unfathomable for me, and it was unbelievable for everybody who could, as the story started to come out, that not only dead bodies that were buried in the backyard, but there were dead bodies buried in the house themselves.
After Anthony Sowell's arrest on Mount Auburn Avenue, he's taken downtown and put in an interrogation room.
Hey, so what did they find you at today? When the police picked you up, where did they get you at?
Mount Auburn, somewhere around there.
You walked the street the whole time, man?
No.
Friend's house or somewhere?
No, I was in an abandoned house.
Okay. When they arrested you, they told you what they arrested you for, right? They tell you why they were talking to you, why you were here.
They said it was an allegation made against me back in September that I assaulted a female against her will.
Okay. All right. Let's listen. Since my partner and I were talking to you, we're all men. You obviously know you've been arrested. You brought in handcuffs. Okay. I had assumed, and probably my fault for assuming that you had already been told what you were.
I mean, those two things. Sexual assault and murder.
Okay.
Sexual assault.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they say, a sexual assault.
Yeah.
And they told you murder also?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the officers in the car, yeah.
The officers in the car mentioned something about murder? Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
they read my rights here.
So they read you your rights and
Twice.
Okay. So then you know that we're here for a homicide investigation in connection with the bodies, right? Mm-hmm. You understand that. It's clear, no problem, you have no issue with that, and we're being straightforward with you, okay?
They had warned us about the smell, and we had a police escort for this. We're not allowed to go in unsupervised because the entire house is evidence. The entire house is a crime scene. So there's detectives who were there with us, and this was my first time, and we were there with a couple of their experts to try and scope out the scene, see if there was any additional testing that they wanted to do. They did warn you about the smell. I wish they had warned us about how claustrophobic it was, because you go from being outside in this open space into an incredibly narrow hallway, and it really messes with your sense of perception and your feeling of security. A lot of it was like walking through a coffin. The gravity of what happened there just presses down upon you. The hallways are very narrow, stairways are very narrow, it's very claustrophobic, it's very dark, there's not a lot of natural light. It's designed to be a threeplex, So you could have one family living on the first floor, one family living on the second floor, and one family living on the third floor.
I was taking my son to college probably a week later, and I heard on the radio.
I'm sure you remember that voice from the last episode. It's Don Laster. He's the man who helps rescue the woman he sees flying out of Anthony Sowell's upper story window.
I was out of state driving, and I heard on the radio that the girl had woke up and exposed him, and they went by his house, and they found horrors in the house. Oh, my God, it hurt so bad that all these ladies that he had murdered and all the children that was left without a mom. Some of them has just stopped to talk to him, and he tricked them into the house, giving them drinks, just like having a fun time. It was just awful, and I found out then. That's the way I found out.
Did you know any of the victims?
Personally, I didn't know them. I've seen them in the neighborhood, quite a few of them. I looked at all of them pictures, and I just felt so bad. But I'm glad that we got her away from him and was able to stop his terror through the neighborhood. And I'm sure the city of Cleveland felt bad, but nobody was hurting like the family members of those girls.
Dan, you know what I'm really not good at?
Oh, let me count the ways.
Why would you say that?
I love you, but
okay.
we're.
Well, I'm going to move that to the side.
Okay.
What I'm not good at is like doing things around the house, like mounting a TV, fixing a dishwasher, stuff like that.
Me neither. I am a disaster when it comes to that. I try, I fail. My intentions are good, my execution is not.
That's usually the case. But luckily for people like you and I, for all the tasks that we need to do but don't want to do, there's TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit connects you with skilled taskers to help with cleaning, moving, furniture assembly. Oh God, that's the worst. Home repairs and more. And a lot of taskers are available to help the same exact day.
I just had a great experience with TaskRabbit. I needed a few things done. I needed to get some new headshots done. I needed a TV mounted, like you mentioned. But the thing that was the biggest priority for me was getting the baseboards in our home cleaned. So I went onto TaskRabbit and I searched for cleaning. And then I actually searched for baseboard cleaning. And TaskRabbit gave me a list of the taskers who have done this. And I sorted by reviews. I sorted by costs. And I found the tasker who seemed to be a good match for me. And it turns out she was. She was easy to book. She showed up on time and she did an amazing job. The baseboards are sparkly clean. And what would have taken me 3 days took her 3 hours.
So in and out and over?
In and out, over, happy.
Awesome. So tackle your to-do list today and get 15% off your first task at TaskRabbit.com or on the TaskRabbit app using promo code DEVIANT.
That's promo code DEVIANT at TaskRabbit.com for 15% off your task.
TaskRabbit. Book trusted help for home tasks. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Drew, we've worked together for a long time.
We have.
And when we first started working together, it was on another show, and that was a pretty high anxiety event.
A lot of pressure from a lot of different places.
And it was really easy to feel a lot of anxiety based on everything that was coming at us, right? And our personalities are very similar in some ways, and we tend to help each other climb the anxiety escalation scale, if you will, right?
Yeah, we're not good at de-escalating the other.
No. Our other partner at the time, her name was Barb. She was the one who would sort of say, guys, calm down. It's going to be okay. Take a breath. We don't have a Barb anymore.
And now there's something called BetterHelp. Everybody deserves a therapist. It helps to talk to somebody else about whatever's going on in between your ears, because we all have things we're carrying with us.
It's really amazing how therapy can change your life for the better, just like eating well or working out. All the things that you do to maintain your physical health, your mental health is just as important. And you know what? One tends to feed the other. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, check out BetterHelp. It's so easy to start. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule.
All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And that, I think, is one of the most important things here, because finding a therapist is often the biggest hurdle. This moves all of those hurdles out of the way.
Fill out a brief questionnaire and they'll match you with a licensed therapist. And if you're not vibing with them, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge.
And you mentioned your physical well-being, right? There's shoulder day, there's leg day. Don't skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/deviant today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/deviant. We keep hearing and using the word victims. But they're not just victims in police reports and newspapers. They're real people. They lived lives, and they had names.
Talacia Fortson, 31 years old, last seen alive in November of 2008.
Diane Turner, 38 years old, last seen alive in the summer of 2008.
Janice Webb, 49 years old, last seen alive in August of 2009.
Nancy Cobbs, 43 years old, last seen alive on April 24th, 2009.
Tanya Carmichael, 53 years old, last seen alive November of 2008.
Tashana Culver, 32 years old, last seen alive in March of 2008.
LaShonda Long, 25 years old, last seen alive in August of 2008.
Imelda Hunter, 47 years old, last seen alive in March of 2009.
Michelle Mason, 45 years old, last seen alive October 8th, 2008.
Kim Smith, 44 years old, last seen alive January 20th, 2009.
Crystal Dozier, 38 years old, last seen alive on June 11th, 2007.
Here's Teresa Stafford again.
You know, these women, they lived at the intersection of many different identities that often weren't protected in our society. They were Black women. Some of them were moms. Some of them had substance use addictions. Some had criminal records. Some were actually trying to turn away from their life and live a better life and got caught up in dealing with soul. So they lived at the intersection of these identities, like I stated earlier, that's often not protected or supported in our society, which makes them more vulnerable for offenders to actually target them, because they know that if I target somebody that lives at the intersection of being a woman, being a Black woman, having substance use issues, then oftentimes when you put those factors together, people aren't trying to protect them. And, you know, sexual assault and these crimes that he committed were a crime of access and opportunity. Who did he have access to, and who did he have the opportunity to cause harm to it? And nobody would care. So he really picked folks that he knew that society wouldn't care about. The families were looking for him. You know, that's one of the things that was out here in the media that was very disheartening, when people were saying, oh, their families didn't even care. No, that night when these young ladies' bodies were being identified, I was out there, and a lot of the families had been, you know, making police reports. Police were turning them away and basically telling them, oh, you know, they're on drugs. They'll come back. They'll resurface. I'll never forget, one of the family members was really specific that, you know, she isn't touching her bank account. Her bank account hasn't been accessed. If she was using drugs right now, her bank account would be empty. However, she hadn't accessed her bank account for weeks, for months at this point in time. And so their families were looking for them. It's we as a society just didn't care.
What you're about to hear is the story of one of these women. It's just one version of 11 similar stories.
My name is Anthony Dozier. My mother was Crystal Dozier. She was considered to be Anthony Sowell's first victim on Imperial Avenue. So she was 13 years old when I was born in 1985. So there's a 13-year gap between us, right? So she was still a kid by all accounts. I will provide some retrospect on my mother because there's some things I didn't understand about her until I got older. But, you know, so for her as a kid, she was raped as a kid, and like a pretty young kid, like 7 or 8 years old, she was raped. And psychologically, it took a toll on her. So because it took a toll on her, she, you know, was pretty sexually promiscuous in her teen years. And she started getting into drug use around the age 14. You know, 1985, 1986, the crack epidemic had kind of in the middle of its full flare. And she was kind of gullible. Like, so for her, it became an escape from the trauma that she dealt with as a kid. Now, fast forwarding, I never understood that as a kid. As a kid, I just felt hurt because I didn't have a mother. I didn't have a father. And so as a youth, I've spent a lot of time fending for myself and then fending for my sister, trying to make sure that we had ends meet. So for instance, back in the day, the government used to give out like government cheese and government peanut butter came in that little can, like the peanut can. So back in the day, ramen noodles would cost about 10 cents. And back in the day, I never forget, at the end of the month, we wouldn't have enough money to afford even a pack of ramen noodles. So early on, me and my sister devised this plan that we would take the peanut butter that the government would give, and she would put it in her pillow, inside of her pillowcase, up under her pillow, and just sleep with it at night. And so towards the end of the month, when we got hungry, we'd go and sneak in the room and take a spoonful of peanut butter apiece to be able to eat it so we have something to eat. So as a child, I spent a lot of time just trying to fend for me and her and our survival. A lot of that is due to the fact that, my mother was battling her own demons that we didn't understand because we were children ourselves. I wouldn't understand it. So she would come around in periods of time. So the only birthday she ever gave me a birthday gift on was my 9th birthday, and it was an action figure. And it was just a random action figure. It was a guy with purple pants and a blue jean jacket on. I think I kept that thing until I was 22 years old. It was so sentimental to me because it was the only thing she ever gave me. So she would come in and we would see her, but she wouldn't stay long. She was fantastic cook. I think some of the best food I've ever had from anybody came from her. I can still taste the macaroni and cheese that she's made one year, even now to this day, because I've never had one like it.
When's the first time the name Anthony Sowell entered your orbit?
Actually, when the murder started happening. Never even heard of him before. Now, I've heard of the name of a guy named Anthony she would go hang out with, but it never came out that his last name was Sowell and things like that. The guy that she was kind of in a relationship with at the time, his name was Lewis. And, me and him would talk, like if I called the house, just trying to rekindle that relationship and be able to talk to her and things like that. And, he'd just say, I think she went to go hang out with her friend Anthony.
When did Anthony become Anthony Sowell as the world knows him?
Again, it was when they started pulling out the bodies, and I never forget it. They started pulling them out. My grandmother instantly, when she started hearing about it, she went downtown to give blood to see if there was any DNA match, and not shortly after she got the hit, and that's when it became known that that's the monster.
How did you process that information? What was your first sort of instant reaction?
For me, I've learned. Let's just say I've learned how to isolate myself, and I do a very good job of kind of isolating myself. So I don't know. I'm the guy who kind of just deals with pain in the darkness, and I never let anybody know it. Just kind of be me alone to myself. It took its toll on me. One of the things I will say is this, right? So as I've learned how to forgive her and forgive Sowell and things like that, one of the things I have done is embrace the heritage that I do come from, right? So with that being said, the fact of the matter is, yes, she is my mother. She bore me and birthed me. And to be honest, she had that choice, right? She could have said no, she didn't want to go through with it, and I wouldn't be here. So I am appreciative of the fact that I am here. I'm appreciative of the fact that she is my mother.
As you can hear, Anthony Dozier had many huge challenges to overcome. And he has.
Here in 2024, he's a veteran of the Marine Corps and owns his own software development company in Cleveland. It's called Crystal Clear Solutions, and yes, it's named after his mom. Inside the Cleveland Police Department, Anthony Sowell is cornered. Literally.
He's sitting in the far corner of the room, and his back is to the window. He's surrounded by 3 detectives, Michael Ballmiller, Richard Durst, and Sergeant Joseph Rennie, all from the Cleveland Police Department.
They lay out for him what he already knows, what they're finding inside his house.
And this is really, really important. And probably the next block of time, 15, 20 minutes, it might be the most important 15 minutes of your life. What we're looking for is to be honest with us some more.
Okay, right now.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, if I can help, and I'll try.
All right, let's just get this over with and talk about what's going on in your home. Now, we've been to your home.
Okay, what? Just ask the question.
Upstairs on the 3rd floor, we found some folks up there. Yeah. Now, hey, I know stuff. You know, you're running with some people that, are kind of fringe folks. Stuff, and again, it's real important. You're honest with us. You know why you're down here. So what happened up there on that 3rd floor?
Watching the video of this, you can see that Sowell is agitated. His foot is bouncing up and down. He's shifting his coffee cup from hand to hand. There's a lot of nervous energy happening here.
What pissed you off? What did these people do to you to make you angry? Because you know what? We're all human beings. We all know that anger. What did these people do to just piss Tony Sowell off?
My head.
You know what, Tom? Let's talk about the first time your anger got a hold of you and it got to you.
I don't know if it's anger like that.
Rage?
No, I can't explain.
When did you first lose control of this anger?
After me and my girlfriend broke up.
At that point, you feel weren't able to control your fear, your anger.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, I just like had a breakdown or something.
So far, the Cleveland police he's talking to are all with the sex crimes unit, but it doesn't take long for them to hand things over to homicide detectives.
Tony, this is Mel, this is Lemmy. They're detectives. Excuse me. They're gonna talk to you now, okay?
Mel and Lemmy are detectives Mel Smith and Lemmy Griffin.
All right,
You want some water, some coffee or something, man?
No, I had enough coffee.
Water?
Cold water, cold bottle of water. Relax yourself a little bit, boy.
Right.
You sweating, you sure?
These guys are now the main investigators. With the discovery of the bodies in Sowell's home, getting to the truth is now their job.
Let me ask you, Tom. I know it may be hard for you to remember, and it's just a guess, okay? You're just guessing. About how many bodies do you think is in the house?
In the house?
Well, what about outside the house? You don't have no idea?
Total maybe, 10.
Outside the house?
No, just
a total of 10 period. The combination of outside and inside?
That's what I don't know.
Yeah. You know, you said you would meet these females and they would come to the house, and sometimes things would happen, sometimes things would not. Sometimes bad things would happen, sometimes good things would happen, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we found more than one body in the house, and I asked you about how many bodies do you think could possibly be in that house, and you said you didn't know. Then I asked you about how many bodies could be outside the house, and you said you didn't know, and then you mentioned 10.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm just giving you a number. I don't know.
Okay.
No more than.
No more than. I'm talking about everything.
No
It
more
might
than
even
10.
be close to 10. I'm not.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about like inside the house.
I don't know.
outside the
I'm just
house.
saying that's the best I can tell you.
What would make you say the number 10, though? Just out
I
of
don't know if this
curiosity.
comes to me. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
A million police officers had already been through this house. They had collected a whole bunch of evidence. They had torn through the walls, torn through the floor, dug up the bodies in the basement and buried in the backyard.
Here's Chris Schroeder again, working with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. He'll later be one of the lead prosecutors on the Sowell case.
While police are working on Anthony back at the office, investigators at the crime scene on Imperial Avenue are trying to get through the day. They're looking for more evidence, anything, everything that they can use to lock this guy up. Inside that house is not a pleasant place to work.
So I was hardly the first person there, but I remember the smell was overpowering.
Still, even then.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because they had been in that house for a year and a half. So the bodily fluids had seeped into the floor, had seeped into the walls. There's no way to get out of it. It was just an overpowering feeling being in that location and knowing what had happened there. And especially feeling that just everything is pressing in on you. This is many years before COVID, so it was the first time I'd ever worn a face mask. So you have to strap on this face mask and you go into this tight, dark house down these rickety old stairs that seem like they're going to collapse under your weight. And you know that this is where 11 people lost their lives, that this is where they had their last moments, alone in this dark house with no one to help them as this psychotic serial killer strangles the life out of them. It felt like more than I could handle at that point. I remember just getting outside when we were done, walking through the house and just ripping off that face mask and just sort of like taking a moment on the street to kind of look up at the sky and like, thank God I'm out of that place.
What did you do that night?
Went home and took about 4 showers because you have to wear gloves and wear booties and you had a plastic not a hazmat suit, but some plastic material that you wear so you don't contaminate the crime scene, because the defense might want additional testing. So I just went home, threw all of my clothes in the wash, took a shower, took another shower, because you just feel like you have this grimy smell of death all over you, in your hair, under your nails, and you just want it off.
Back in the interrogation room in downtown Cleveland, Detectives Smith and Griffin get down to what they know and what Sowell knows.
We need to talk about the issue in hand with the people at the house, okay?
And we're not here to judge, man, okay? We don't judge nobody, okay?
We don't know what happened. We don't know the reason why it happened. There's any number of reasons. You can explain to us if you choose to tell us about any things that you had, any problems you have, difficulties, or your reason. We'll be willing to sit and listen to it. We're not going to try to pass judgment on whatever you've done or why you've done it. If you feel the need to talk to us about it, then we'll listen, obviously, you know.
And a lot of times it make you feel
and absolutely. I'm sure it's important to you that what people feel about you or think about you, you know.
I know what they're going to think.
You can do something about that also. You can change the thoughts of a lot of people. You know, they may look at you in one manner and think that, oh man, how awful this guy.
What's wrong with that? Some people, things I've done, they actually mention them, so I know they was telling the truth.
Yeah, well, you're going to get some people that's going to, in regards of what you do or say, they're going to think one way. And then you're going to get some people that are going to say, well, you know, maybe this guy has some problems we need to look at and sit down and talk to him and try to understand what was he going through. This is my concern, because we don't know who those people are. We would like to get some kind of clarification on who they may be, because there are people that are waiting to hear from us because they want to try to identify their loved ones. Man, that's a good thing that you could do, is try to identify.
Like I told them, I don't even remember meeting them, names or anything, but I do have.
Well, vaguely what you. Let's try this. We're gonna make this real simple, so it won't be complicated for you. At some point in time, you started meeting some young ladies and bringing them over. So maybe kind of go back a little bit, you know, kind of shake up your memory a little bit, and what you can clearly remember, or some memories of what you have, the circumstances, or how you met them, or where you met them, and how they came to be over there, and what names they may have given you, would help us a lot. And it would help you, and it would change. I'm sure it would change a lot of people's thoughts. You don't want to be thought as a monster. You are a human being that's got feelings. That's my appeal to you, is to try.
I don't remember no names.
You remember?
I don't remember how I met them. All I can remember is visions of faces.
Okay.
Now, if you got a picture, I might can help.
Well, what about the visions? Tell me something about some of the visions you have.
I see faces.
Okay.
He sees faces, hears voices, has dreams. That's his line here. He's sticking to it.
Homicide detectives try to move him off of it, but he's not cracking.
And as authorities recover more bodies, questions start getting asked. Very tough questions.
Next time on Deviant. We've been saying that all this loss, all this pain, all this damage shouldn't have happened, that it could have been stopped way earlier.
Through the process of discovery, we found out that the sex crimes unit did not take seriously interactions of victims.
No, they wasn't looking out for each other or trying to find her, but some of the families was reporting it to the police. Some of the families was reporting that Anthony Sowell was the last one seen with their loved ones. But nothing got done about it.
Until next time, thanks for listening.
Remember the mission we gave you at the beginning of the show? Follow Deviant on your podcast platform if you're not already, and follow us on social, TikTok, Instagram at deviant.podcast. Also, one more reminder, there's a lot of great stuff on our Patreon. There's behind-the-scenes footage of us recording this show. There's video of the deviants we're talking about, documents, all sorts of primary source material that you can dig into yourself. Also, come hang out with us on Discord. We'd love to meet you. You can find information on all of that at deviantpodcast.com.
Deviant is written, produced, and executive produced by Clark Goldband, Dan Semitovich, and me, Andrew Iden. Editorial and production consultation comes from Jenny Ament, with original scoring from Shuvo Sir. Marketing, sales, and distribution support comes from our partners at Gemini 13. Deviant is a production of Cold Open Media.